You are recording.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Communication Subcommittee of the Assembly Rules Committee to order. Jennifer, could you do a quick roll call for us?
You bet. Ms. Zolotel?
Here.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Here.
Mr. Constant?
Here.
And Mr. Rivera?
Present.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. We will start with the first item on our agenda, which is communicating the Assembly's work on homelessness. And Mr. Rivera, would you like to introduce this item for us?
Sure, thank you. And apologies if I sound a little bit distracted. I just got out of a tour at the Wildlife Conservation Center. So I'm driving from the center back to Anchorage now. But I believe is Northwest Strategies, are they on the meeting?
Hi, Felix. This is Tiffany from Northwest Strategies. And Esther Glassianov is also on.
Yep.
Fantastic. So I invited Northwest Strategies to join the meeting. Per previous conversations of this subcommittee as well as the entire rules committee, we've talked about the $150,000 left over from elections and how to best use that money. And one of the top priorities that the body had communicated to me was communications around homelessness. So part of the meeting today is to get a better sense of scope so that Northwest Strategies, even though we haven't necessarily chosen Northwest Strategies to do the work, I think they're one of the vendors that's top of our list, so that Northwest Strategies can do a price based on the scope that we developed today.
Great. Thanks, Felix. So I guess what I'll do is I'll open this up a bit roundtable style for the members who are here to discuss, excuse me, to discuss what kinds of things we would want to communicate around homelessness. I think would be probably a good way to start, like where we see the need. And I would happily invite Chris or Austin to speak on that. I feel like I get a little too in the weeds to start, but I'm sure I'll have some thoughts as we move along as well.
I actually don't have a lot to offer on that topic.
Meg, can you say again what the exact request was?
Sure. So Felix would like us to work on some communications around homelessness. And I think there are some things we could do with utilizing a strategist like Northwest Strategies or someone else. But I was just wanting to start to get, like, we probably need to get together a bit of a list of the topics or things we need to better communicate around homelessness.
Yep.
And I thought if you had some ideas, I feel like I'm really close to it. So I'll probably have something to add, but I didn't want to start because I tend to get in the weeds.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for asking. So from my perspective, for a couple years, I think that we've been making gains in dealing with the issue of homelessness, but haven't been great about telling that story. And so I'm really interested in seeing someone, one thing I had asked for maybe year and a half ago now from the administration was even just like an FAQ page that we could take to community council meetings and share, basically gains we had made. In 1 year to the next, I think it was 18 to 19, we had 300 fewer folks in shelter and had been able to house, 300 fewer in camps and had moved them to shelter. And so anyway, just kind of telling the story of progress we had made. I think it would involve trying to pull that information out of Nancy Burke, and Jasmine Boyle would be a great resource. And trying, I was thinking, there should be videos telling the story the gains we've made, but also personalizing homelessness. And I mean, these are real humans. And I think that the way a lot of the public talks about homeless individuals is not that way. And so I would like there to be some stories of people and how they got there. So kind of from two angles, what we're doing to fix the problem, what the state's not doing to fix the problem, how they've made it difficult for us, and making the problem more relatable. Those are just some initial thoughts.
Great, thank you. I was just jotting those down. I think the other piece I would want to add on to that would be a little bit of community education around some of the key terms we use, particularly in the continuum of care, whether that's identifying permanent supportive housing, what rapid rehousing is, how does that differ from transitional housing versus homeless and transient shelters? I think getting some, and maybe that's part of an FAQ, but to figure out quick, easy definitions for some of the common terms that are common to those who are in the homeless response system, but maybe not to the general public. But I don't have much more to add beyond that, other than there'd probably be an element to it around behavioral health as we were to dig in a little bit more, and how our work in behavioral health that the Assembly is putting forward intersects with homelessness, and why the two, or why the two different efforts are quite complementary and part of a more holistic response.
May, can I just add to that?
Please.
I totally agree. And I think that, part of the challenge we saw with the purchase of the homeless properties is that the Assembly kept saying, and those who work in the field, oh no, there's a plan. We have the Sacred Home Plan. We've been trying to work toward this for a long time. The public had not been brought along on that journey, and they didn't really know about the plan. And I think, a very small group of folks who attend our homelessness committee meetings or are otherwise really engaged might know about it, but the general public does not. And so I think there needs to be a real effort to do like a comprehensive, we have a plan. This is what the plan says. These are the things we've achieved in the plan. This is what's left to do. And these are sort of the accomplishments we're making with this plan as our guidance. And this is how the purchase of the buildings fits into that, because that's really a piece of this as well.
If I might add just a tiny bit, for my part, the thing I've always cautioned the administration on, and no one ever seems to listen, is also tell some of the stories of where we haven't done the best job, where things didn't work how we thought they would, and how we've corrected paths because of efforts that didn't work out right. And so the reason I say that is because the public doesn't believe us when we say everything is good. But the public believes us a lot more when we say everything is good, but here's where it didn't work, and here's why, and here's what we did. And so I would add, just whatever we do, let's take a warts and all approach, not just happy-go-lucky, here we are, it's all working.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. And we could kind of present that as lessons learned, like information we've gathered to move forward.
Absolutely.
And on that point, I think part of that lessons learned will be bringing the public along as we have the ongoing conversation around shelter licensing, because it might feel complex if we don't bring them along. And similarly, and I've requested with the administration to start the conversation about mental health first responders. Both are paradigm shifts in how we do business in the municipality in those areas, and will directly affect homelessness. And we should bring the public along in the discussion so that they're providing input, understanding where we're coming from, and we'll have their input to see if we've missed something.
And I think that the administration, in the last couple of months has done a better job of communicating about homelessness than they've done for years. And both the creation of the website that they created has a bunch of information about homelessness, and then the FAQ that they put together about the purchase of the buildings. Those are really, maybe not every person's going to access that and they're somewhat dense, but I think pulling out of that some information and then about homelessness generally, I'd love to see some like public facing friendly infographics, colorful things. I don't know if we're allowed to buy advertisements, but like this many people served, whatever. Like we need to sort of break it down and make it easy to comprehend and get that out because people just aren't seeing the data.
Yeah, if I might, Meg. So that leads me to two additional questions that I'm sure Northwest Strategies has, and then after this, I'd be curious to see if they have any questions they'd like to ask. But so two things. First is there a target population, target audience with this work that we're going to ask Northwest Strategies or another firm to do? And then second is, are there specific mediums that we would like Northwest Strategies or another firm to use? I've heard infographics, I've heard advertisements. So a little bit more on those two to help firm up the scope from this committee would be helpful.
Separate from some of those things, Felix, one thing that I have said, and I actually have an outline for this from back when Landfield did his one video he did on homelessness, which was incredibly well received. And so this is separate from Northwest Strategies or any selected contractor at this point, but would be some kind of a documentary that kind of walks and talks through the various aspects of the service system. Could be short videos, could be little longer form. But out in the camps, who are these people? Why are they here? At the shelters, what is it like? In the housing providers, what's going on there? At the policy making table, with the funders group and how the decisions are made. Kind of an analysis and a kind of explication of how the system works from a policy level to the grassroots. I think following along the lines of Landfield's original video, that kind of style, which was made by Jensen Hall, would be very, very helpful, albeit probably quite expensive.
As to the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Meg, I was just going to ask a question, and maybe Felix knows this, maybe he doesn't, but what are the parameters that we're allowed to work within? I mean, I could see trying to engage on Facebook being a really useful thing because so many folks are on Facebook, and having very short 1 minute or less little videos about accomplishments, showing that homeless people experiencing homelessness are human, that sort of thing. But I just don't know what we're allowed to do, and
yeah. So this is general government money. This isn't CARES Act or anything like that. So as far as I know, the opportunities are endless.
So
okay, great.
To your point, Austin, I think the Beans has done a really good job with those short Facebook videos. And so I think they've got a really great template, particularly humanizing folks who are in their facilities. And then as to kind of deliverables or takeaways, I could really use something personally that would be helpful for the community council audience. I don't know how your community councils necessarily go, but I pretty much get a lot of questions around homelessness. And so if there was even just a continual referring paper, like whether it's an FAQ or a quarterly update, something towards that particular audience for the FCC or otherwise, and then something where we could have a piece on, and I've talked with the administration about this, their updated webpage, they're willing to give the committee space on that particular webpage. We just would have to create the content for it.
Yeah,
which would be,
oh, sorry, I was just gonna
say, which would be better than the current committee page. So, so that would be helpful, and then we could, link back or in the news, monthly newsletters or whatever. Maybe some of the updates could go there.
Meg, those were, excuse me, that was basically my first request of the administration was like, I need some information about homelessness. Because you start going to, I mean, for you have experience, and Chris too, I'm a land use lawyer. I don't know anything about homelessness, and I do now, but to some extent. But when I started, I really needed information for the public, and I needed it in a really digestible way, and particularly at community council meetings. And so that's why I asked Nancy. It took about a year, and then I got a long 3 to 4 page document about why people become homeless, which is not what I was looking for. So we do have that document, and it could be helpful in other contexts. But I think, quarterly, where are we at? What's the count? How many people are homeless? How many people were homeless last year? What accomplishments have we made? What work has yet to be done? How are we doing it? How's money being spent? People have asked me questions at community council. How much money do we spend on homelessness? And I've asked Nancy, and she says, I don't know. Because there's all these different departments working on it. And of course we could find it out, but we haven't been able to do that. And I think it just, we're not doing anything wrong, but I think it makes the public feel like we're not being responsive and transparent. And so I'd really like to change that dynamic.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Northwest Strategies folks, do you have some questions for us?
Yeah, just following up on Felix's question regarding the target audience. I understand the general public is the target audience, and it sounds like we have some subgroups, including community councils, that we would want to create materials for or tools for you to use to communicate with those groups. What other target audiences are key for this particular effort?
I think there are two that come to mind. One would be potentially our state partners, into where we're finding gaps that really can only be filled by the state of Alaska. And that'll be a little bit of the overlap with the behavioral health piece, I believe. And then the other would be with philanthropy, a way to both communicate our needs for philanthropy to consider, but also our partnerships with philanthropy and community partners as well. I think both of those are really important aspects of that community relationship.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any other audiences they would like to add to that?
I mean, it's really hard for us, I think, because we serve the general public. And so really, I mean, everyone who lives in my district is someone I need to be communicating with. And so I think it's really hard to narrow that down. And I think that's why Facebook is such a great place, because most people are on Facebook. So I'd like at least some of the communications to be done there.
I guess we also have a communication goal of communicating with people who are experiencing homelessness, because we want them to utilize shelters and take advantage of services. And that may not be only the Assembly's role, but if we can help facilitate that, I think it goes towards our aims and our goals. But that would probably be something we would do in conjunction with the Coalition to End Homelessness.
Okay, that's helpful. So in terms of the goals, just as a summary, and I want to make sure I'm not missing anything, and of course this is highly simplified, but my key takeaways are here. Increase understanding of what the Assembly is doing to combat homelessness, accomplishments, how much money is being spent, what is planned. We want to be responsive and transparent. Increase positive public perception of what the Assembly is doing. We want to humanize the issue, and we want to communicate with people who are experiencing homelessness. Do you agree that that is a comprehensive summary of the information you provided today?
I think it's pretty close. Anybody else?
I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing anything.
I think I missed the beginning of it. I'm sorry. So if Meg thinks it's good, I think she's probably on top of it.
Okay, and it sounds like there are some tools that have been created through the administration that we could potentially work from. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, there's a web page that they put up around homelessness that they've offered us. There's not currently a spot for the committee on the Assembly's Committee on Homelessness yet because we haven't created any content, but we could be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
most members have Facebook pages as well.
The administration also put out an FAQ about the properties, which you could find on their homelessness page. And, you know, if you're the entity that ends up working on this, we could also connect you with some internal emails and things. I mean, I think I have that document that Nancy Burke sent ages ago about why people become homeless, which could be useful if distilled, I think.
Great.
I think that last point there, Austin, is a really great one, which is I think we need help distilling what sometimes gets to be really complicated information into digestible information for the public. Whether that's why people become homeless, the overall strategy, instead of pointing folks, you know, to a 40-page plan, even though we'd love to make it available, it is available to them, but something much more digestible. Similarly with the gap analysis, I don't expect folks to dive into the statistics. So it's just something that I haven't had time to do. I don't think anyone's really had time to do. So that's, I think, a good piece to this is taking big pieces of information and making them digestible in either in a quick format, either a quick verbal report, something you could look at on Facebook, or a quick video, and then with the back material readily available.
One thing I haven't heard is responsive content to the rapid pace of how everything moves. You know, we 1 month are dealing with one issue, and then by the next month we've had 3 new issues crop up. And by the time you get to the 4th month, you can't even believe what you were doing 4 months ago because it seems so yesterday compared to all the troubles you're facing today with the issues. And so what we don't really have, I think, is a clear ongoing communication process that allows for the record to evolve with what we're doing and keep up with it. And so some kind of a short turnaround updates that happen as frequently as we meet so that we are able to telegraph in more than just the agenda and the record what happened.
And Felix, this is Jennifer. Do you think it would be helpful to talk about timeline at all? Just when hearing Mr. Constant talk about that, I just don't know if we laid that out, what kind of timeline we're looking at.
Yeah, so just like the CARES Act funding, this funding needs to be used by the end of the year. And so this is by its nature going to be a short-term project. But I can see this, you know, if next year we decided to put funding in this in the budget, which I really hope we do, this could roll over into a continual project, assuming we get the funding to do that. So what we're talking about now is the start of what could be sort of a long-term communications on homelessness.
I think with that too, then I guess I would love to see us work to put some structural pieces in place that we could utilize even if we don't have as much funding or have funding, so that there's the framework that we can go in, add content to over time. Is there anything else anyone wants to share on this topic or any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none, thanks for joining us and asking questions. And Felix, thanks for bringing this forward. We appreciate it. I'm going to move on to the next item in the agenda, and this is one I asked to be added. It says Assembly member phones. I just wanted to toss it out for discussion and thought. I recently took my personal cell phone number off of communications, but learned very quickly that when I return calls from the voice messages, my cell phone is still out there for the public. So it feels a little bit like a self-defeating circle. So I don't have a really fantastic solution to that other than wanted to throw it out there. Don't know if anybody else has the same concern. But it might be something where when we do work in person at offices, of course, we could possibly use a landline. But in the interim, without some other mechanism, I guess our phone numbers are just the return call. So I'll open that up for some short discussion if anyone has any thoughts. But I just want to put it out there for folks to noodle on.
Yeah, I have a quick thought on that one, Meg. So most newfangled phones, so I know my phone does it, and I'm pretty sure everyone else's phone, maybe not you, Chris, knowing you, but everyone else's phone, they should have the ability to have two SIM cards, meaning two separate phone numbers. And currently, under our expense account memos, you can use the expense account to pay for your phone bill or however that works. So, I think with the new cell phones and the new technology we have, I think it would be relatively easy for Assembly members to have that second SIM card, that second phone number that they use specifically for Assembly business. Or, if you want to go old school, cheap way, you could use your expense account expense account to pay for a flip phone to use for your secondary phone just for Assembly business.
Thanks, Felix. I would never have crossed my mind about the SIM card thing. I don't even know really what that is, but I will look it up. So it's good to know that there are some options. So great. Yeah. Everyone probably, I'm not as old as I sound, I promise. So.
Oh, spirit.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else on that, I just wanted to toss that out there, and we'll move on to our old business, which is, I believe we have someone to talk with us and review with us the contact chart that the clerk's office has prepared.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So to kind of help the outreach with the public and make getting in touch with Assembly members easier, it was requested to make a kind of compact information chart that we can put on the website. That way everybody's contact information is in one place. So I did make a rough kind of table chart and reached out to all Assembly members asking if they have any social media handles that they wanted to add, like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or a personal website. I have only heard back from about 6 Assembly members. So I updated the information that I received, and I can share what I currently have if you're interested.
Sure, go ahead.
So can everybody see it?
Can you make it a little bigger, Liz?
Yes.
Better.
A little better? Okay. So this is the information that I have received so far. I have heard back from Miss Kennedy as well as Mr. Peterson, and they don't have social media. So
I thought I'd asked to have my cell phone number taken down. It just has been too hot. So.
Okay, I can definitely delete that.
And you did, Chris. This is just an internal document right now, just so you know. But thank you for that reminder.
Yep. And I did create a new Facebook page I can hand off.
Sure. Yeah, if you just want to email that to me, and that way I can add it to the chart.
Great, looks great. I need to get you my information. I apologize. I'm one of the people who have not done that. And if it was okay with Felix, maybe I could just provide a gentle reminder at the next rules committee for a moment that folks should look for that.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for doing that. I think that'll be helpful for folks to find us. Not that I think anyone's had any issues finding us, but they'll be able to find us in multiple ways.
Thank you, Liz.
You're welcome.
Next up, I asked Jennifer to put Assembly Navigator program on for old business to see if we were responsible or hadn't gotten back with you, Barbara, or where that was. I know I've lost a little bit of track of it.
I think it's a little of both. Meg, we sent out an initial draft for your review and we haven't heard back from people, but we have an updated draft that we haven't sent to you. So we'll be happy to get that out. And then the next thing that I wanted to let you know about the Navigator program is I've contacted the OLE group. I think it's older learners, something like that at UAA. Does anybody know what OLE stands for? Something like that.
I know of them, but I don't remember what the E stands for either.
So in any event, I've contacted the administrator for that group and sent her our draft and asked her if she would be interested in discussing it with us further and providing us some volunteers. Of course, COVID is probably a problem for that, but I figure we need to get started anyway.
Great. Okay, we will look for that, and I will be much more diligent this time in making sure I review it in a timely manner. Okay, last item was some form of regular meetings for this subcommittee. And I don't know what folks are thinking, if it needs to be monthly. And then, of course, which day of the week and week of the month.
Is it just too difficult to schedule when we need one? I mean, it's been working for me, but if it's a pain, we could do a regular one, I guess. I'm just worried that we might need, it might not work to do it regularly because we might need more time sometimes and less time other times.
This is Jennifer. I think it's fine to schedule needed if that's what the group wants to do. If we could just have a goal, you know, of maybe scheduling a week in advance so that we only need a couple days public notice, but it's nice if we can give more. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm fine with as needed as well. And I think we can, yeah, definitely look out a week in advance, absent there being something urgent. And I think we'll also just rely a little bit on the chair if he knows there's something on the horizon that we need to take up. Chris, are you okay with that?
Yes, my schedule is a little bit wonky, but I'm usually able to make this work.
Okay. That is it for our agenda.
I have one item.
Please.
It's the radio conversation. I have been seeking opportunities how that might work, and there's really only one radio station that I think could fit the bill. if we wanted to figure out a way. And it would take a serious negotiation, but they're in a position where they are probably willing to negotiate. And it's KRUA. The University of Alaska Anchorage radio station is basically dead right now. They're just playing streamed music that they get from somewhere else because they don't have anyone doing DJ work. And it would have been awesome to have it for the meeting that we're in now because the public is still saying they're having a hard time accessing the meeting. The challenge with radio has been that A, we've never done it, and B, most radio stations have pretty packed programming. That's how they pay their bills. So there were 2 radio stations that fit the bill. One was Out North Radio, KONR, and then KRUA. I had some discussions with KONR, and they just can't really make it work because they do have a number of people doing kind of ongoing programming, and they couldn't figure it out. So I don't know. I obviously haven't reached out to UAA because that's a much more comprehensive and complex question because of the foundation system, all the bureaucracies. But it's certainly something that I would like us to explore about how we could get our radio broadcast up in such a way that every one of our meetings is accessible to anyone who can tune into a radio, which will kill any argument that people in low-income neighborhoods can't access because they don't have high-speed internet. And it will give us just one more rich way we can get the information out. So that's kind of the topic.
Great, thank you. I think that's a great idea. The one question I have about KRUA is its broadcast reach. I believe it's a low frequency radio station. And so I don't know. I know that when I used to live south of Tudor, I could barely get it. So it's just something to flag that that's something we're going to want to explore is the reach of the station.
It was definitely the same issue with Out North. They definitely don't get to Girdwood or Eagle River very well. And so, yes, all of these concerns, but if we want to take this on earnestly, then we should begin this conversation. And I don't know if we will be able to make it work just because of that constraint and a number of others.
Okay.
Chris, thanks for doing all that.
I just want to. Yeah, so Meg, just to add to this conversation briefly. Thanks to Chris for doing some of that legwork. I think it was last week or so. I had introduced the topic to the Assembly leadership, and so Barbara is going to be exploring this further. It's just, I think Barbara needed about 2 weeks or so to get a few things off of her plate before she could move further on this subject. But now that there's at least sort of a place to start the conversation, I think that's going to be helpful as we continue making progress on this. But I think I'm for sure on the same page that this would be really great to increase access, and if we can make it happen, I want to push that forward.
Great. And I was thinking, even though there may be broadcast limitations, a lot of them also broadcast a streaming service, which I know it would be an easier internet than watching or take less internet or less bandwidth, whatever the right term is, than watching a video. So it would still be another accessibility feature potentially there as well. So I think it, Austin, are you also favorable to the idea of exploring radio?
Absolutely. And thank you, Chris, for looking into it already. I really appreciate that. And I think that we'll just have to do our best. And even if a radio station that's the best option can't broadcast everywhere, we have a number of different ways for people to engage with TV and with streaming online and potentially then with radio. So I think between those three, we're doing our best, and we can only do our best. And so I really appreciate Chris for trying to go above and beyond and find another way for the public to engage.
Great. So what I think I would say is if there's anything we can do to assist the clerk's office, please let us know. And you, Chris. Very exciting. Anything else for the good of the committee for today?
Meg, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Okay, so as far as the radio, just to recap what I think I heard you all say, for direction for the clerk's office, it sounds like, Chris, that you've already put some legwork into exploring all the radio sort of options. And so for us to pick it up from here, we really want to focus on the KRUA option. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that I would offer to reach out to a couple of communication firms as well and see what their thoughts are. I think that the issue of KRUA, it can go through the clerk's office. It's going to be a conversation with UAA's leadership. And so I don't know who the best is to do that.
Chris, could we just contact you to have a discussion off this meeting about what to do next?
Yep, perfect. Let's have a little working group.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, do we have any members of the public on with us? Jennifer, can you tell?
I don't believe we do. I only see one phone number, and I think that is Felix, 0841.
Okay, well, unless there's anything else, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Sounds good. Productive meeting.